Well, it looks like to me most everybody has joined in that was in the waiting room. Thank you all for joining today. We're pretty darn excited about this. This is going to be the first of many. Welcome to our open mic session. Our goal today is total transparency. We're here to, more than anything, lean into the difficult topics and difficult situations that we might be under and really kind of answer the questions that we can, but also, we're not going to be able to answer all of them in this format, but we'll get back to you. We're going to take notes on those questions, and we're going to make sure that we answer them. That's something that's been a hallmark of the Wyoming Business Council, and it will continue to be, which is that transparency that we can provide. And just to make sure that everyone on the call realizes that it's an open mic, which is a little bit daring and a little bit fun. But let's make sure it's a productive space for everybody and that you keep the dialogue civil and focus on the issues that we can work on. And I think more than anything, let's all be part of Team Wyoming. And Team Wyoming doesn't necessarily mean that we all agree. It means that we're all fighting for the Team Wyoming and making sure that we're doing what we can to build our strong communities and create a landscape where businesses can thrive and families can stay together. And I will say though, in these times, what I have found is that things can get a little bit, well, maybe not as professional as they should be. And I understand everybody's under a lot of pressure. There's a lot of things going on in our worlds that make us feel like maybe we've got to push the edges of that professionalism. And so just note that we will and absolutely reserve the right to mute participants who don't keep it professional, who make it personal, and who don't stick to, seeking the truth about an issue. And let's just make sure that we keep our conversation honest, direct, and respectful. I have a pretty broad tolerance for that, but at the same time, I want to be respectful of all of the guests who are here and the people who are listening to this open mic. My name is Josh Dorrell. I'm the CEO of the Wyoming Business Council, and the Wyoming Business Council is more than anything here to help our state compete in the economy, but also to make sure that we have those strong communities that where businesses can thrive and families can stay together. The reality is that in many cases, our communities do not have the resources they need in order to make sure that they can grow and to create that business environment that's needed. And we also know that as a result of that, we have the highest outmigration of any state in the nation, and we're twice the national average. Chances are pretty good you're tired of me hearing that. I am too. I'm tired of saying it. And that's why we're here, is to change that. And so we're looking forward to hearing from all of you and working through this. So with that, I'm going to let this mic be open, and we're going to, if you could please raise your hand and let us know if Chris, you want to show that little screen. I don't know if we showed that screen that shows people how to raise their hand. They're probably aware of how to do that. But I'm happy to turn the mic over to whoever raises their hand. And here's the little screen on how to do that. Okay, it looks like Brenda Schlodweiler has raised her hand. And Brenda, if you wouldn't mind saying your last name, I'm just interested to see how close I came.
Oh, you did really good. I appreciate that. So I'm in Gillette. I'm in one of the richer counties in Wyoming, and I think the need for the business council may vary by county depending on the resources within that county. Can you address that in terms of what maybe some of the smaller counties, the work you do there?
Yeah, thanks, Brenda. I'll do my best to answer that. And I'll also point everyone to some of the resources we have on what we call our Team of Thousands page, where we have a number of resources and the breakdown of all of the projects that we've done, as well as a lot of the services that we provided in all of the counties across the state. You know what? I think that the real answer to that is that and Amy Quick is adding that to the chat so you can see where that is. But one of the things that I think people need to realize is that every county in the state is different, and you have different resources that are available to you. You have different challenges that you want to approach. And in some ways, we take a very similar approach no matter what county you're in Wyoming, because what we do is we take a look and say, what is stopping your growth? Is it a need for capacity and services, or is money really, and maybe in hard infrastructure, really the thing that's stopping you? And so, Brenda, it's even though you're in one of the richer counties in the state, I don't think I think if you were to look at the projects that we've done up in your area, you'll see that no county in the state can do it alone. Now, I will say Campbell County has done an awful lot. You should have a lot to be proud of, and you have a community that really knows how to drive things forward and be proud of that. But I do think that it's important for all of us to realize we all need that help, and we all should look at what is their barrier to growth, and if the state can play a role to help out, I would like to be here to do that. And if you could do it on your own, I think that's even better. I think building self-reliance in our communities is exactly what we want to do ultimately. So thanks for that. And Brenda, hopefully we'll put in the chat the link to the specific area where you can see the projects we've done and see all of those around the state, but especially in your area. Thank you.
Oh, you bet.
Uh,
Thank you.
yeah. It looks like Chris, you've raised your hand. Chris R. Chris, you're currently muted, and it looks like you might be on a bit of a bumpy road, so might be hard to unmute while you're on your phone there.
How about now?
There you go.
Yeah.
We got you now.
Okay. Yeah. Somebody else is driving, just in case anyone's wondering.
Good.
Um,
Safety first.
yeah. So, Josh, a couple things. First of all, thanks for the open mic approach. I'd say my experience is that we all get very little of this from all agencies, all fronts. So, thank you for the open mic approach. Um, the your records your records request has done a good job getting back to me on a couple things, and in the final analysis or my current position on this is I've not yet been able to get to any project or set of projects where there is a actual versus potential / estimated benefit. And I don't know if any of this is bubbled up. I've probably been a little sore point for some folks in trying to answer these questions. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of this is what we're going to do with the money. This is what we expect from a higher standpoint or some other aspiration. But I've yet to see a detailed list by project of what's actually been delivered to the taxpayers.
Chris, thanks for the question, and thanks for being somebody who checks into that. I think that's a really critical thing. Here's what we ought to take a look at, and I'm assuming that you're talking about what we call the Business Ready Communities program, where we fund community assets. So that could be in planning grants, it could be in buildings that a business then might lease from the city or county. It could also be in hard infrastructure like water lines, sewer lines, streets, curbs and gutters, things like that. That program, the way those come about is that a community will decide what type of project they will do based on, again, the analysis of what is a binding constraint, what are they trying to accomplish. Hopefully, it's about job creation and making the community unlock growth. And then they put together an application that comes to us. That application, as you might imagine, does include estimations on things like jobs created or the overall success of the project. We start working with them very closely at the very beginning of that to bring some economic rigor, but also to make sure that we temper the expectations and make sure that it's not just some pie in the sky ideas. So we start working with them on those. Those are seen by our committees from our board of directors. And then ultimately our board of directors makes a decision to fund or not to fund based on our analysis of the project. Again, all of that information. We had one gentleman from Sweetwater County who said, and he brought in a stack of papers and it was like this thick. And he said, you need to make your application easier. And I'm guessing there are folks on this call that might think we need to make it harder. So, I mean, we're trying to split the difference there a little bit, but we take that information and then what we do with it is we make a decision at the board that is then presented to the state loan and investment board, which are our 5 elected officials. So that gives us a little bit of a figure of how we get to the point of funding. Now, let's say that our board of directors presents to the SLIB a positive recommendation for funding, and then SLIB says, yes, let's fund that project. Well, then at that point, we develop an agreement with the community that says, this is what we expect you to build, and this is what you'll do. Here's the statement of work. Here's the terms and conditions. The minute that work begins, that's on the community, that is on the contractor until we receive a receipt or an invoice from them. The funds, let's say we do a $20 million project in your community, the funds stay at the state until we receive an invoice for work done. And then at that point, we reimburse that money. Now, I don't mean to take this too far, but that is a confusing thing. And I should probably get a whiteboard and draw it because it's actually a pretty challenging thing. But all that money stays in a community asset or at the state until it's put into that community asset. And then the business either utilizes that and pays rent, or it again is hard infrastructure that the community owns and continue to pay water rates and things like that. At that point, we also start reporting. Once the project is done, there is a reporting mechanism that occurs for at least 5 years. Up until recently, it's been 5 years. And over the course of time, what we realized is that we have the estimates, as you mentioned, and then we have the actuals, and we can compare those. And we'd be happy to share more of that with you on individual projects or as a whole, if that's important to you. And what we found though is that 5-year period may not be long enough. We might want to take a look at a longer period of time. And in fact, if the community owns that asset, we are extending that period of time even further. And so what I would say is that 2 things. One, we're really, really good stewards of state funds because we keep those state funds until work is completed. We don't drop $20 million in a community or $20 million to a business and walk away. We keep that funds in our charge until there's an invoice that says otherwise. And then also we report on all of those metrics. And we would be happy to provide deeper detail on the metrics for the projects we have. Did that answer your question, sir?
No, Josh, it doesn't. So I understand everything you said. I understand the complexity, and sometimes things take longer. I get all that. We've been at this quite a while. The organization has been in place for decades.
Yep.
Can you commit to provide, let's call it a dozen projects from as far back as you want, or as near as you would like, and publish those with all the detail that as yet I've yet to see on any project. I was given a dump on about 30 projects, and Josh, it's just not there.
Okay.
So I'm gonna assume that they just haven't pulled it together yet.
Yeah.
Or you guys are figuring out how to present it. But I've done massive projects like a lot of other people, and this stuff is not rocket science. You got to go back and ask these folks, okay, it's been 25 years, as an example, what did we get out of it? And look, I recognize that there's going to be indirect and some tough to measure benefit. I get that.
Yep.
But I think part of your biggest problem here is the appearance of lack of transparency, and where there is some level of transparency, although it's not easy to get to, Josh. You don't have the goods, you don't have the receipts. Right? I think a reasonable person would expect many of these projects to have the receipts by now. So
Well,
can you commit to having somebody pull 12 projects from whatever time period, and
yep.
they said X and they delivered 75% of X or 2X?
Yes, sir. Yes, we can. I will commit to that. Thank
All
you.
right.
Excellent.
Before I drop off, can you give all of us just some sort of a reasonable timeline on that?
Yeah, let's
Next week?
see. Let's see. How about 2 weeks from now?
Perfect.
Okay. Great.
Yep,
And
that's
if
good
we
for
don't
me.
if we don't have it all done by then, we'll deliver what we have and let you know how long it'll take to get the next.
That's fair. Been there,
Okay.
done that. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Before you, yeah, so still,
Yep.
Chris, great questions. Thank you. I want to follow up with something though that we have been analyzing over the
Yep.
course of the last few weeks for everybody here. And that
Yep.
is there, if you invest $1 into the Business Ready Communities program or the YVC, the venture capital fund that we have, those are federal dollars, but for every dollar in those projects, the economic impact, and that means dollars in people's pockets in Wyoming, for every dollar is $20 that gets generated for people in the state. And 50 cents of it comes back in tax revenue. So the investment leverage ratio is amazing. And I see what you're asking is the specifics of that. And I'm happy to get you the specifics for that dozen projects and the estimates. Um, I will tell you right now, I'll probably be looking for ones that don't do that well as well as the ones that are shining examples, because I'm one of these people who wants to solve the problem, not make us
That's
look good. So thank you. All right.
fine. And to continue on that thread, we would expect that. And so then, what are the lessons learned, Josh,
Yep.
to prop them back up? Do they need another buck to get them over the goal line, or do we want to make sure we don't want to keep doing this in the future? It's just the real problem, Josh, is that until you committed to it right now, we weren't going to get it. So that's I think a big hurdle for you guys.
All right. Well, Chris,
All
thanks
right,
for bringing that to our attention and really appreciate the
look,
thoughtfulness. And you know what else? I really
yep,
appreciate, and we'll move on to Gail. I appreciate that you're seeking to understand first and then to be understood. You're not making any assumptions. I appreciate that a lot. So thanks for digging into the data.
okay.
Gail.
Hi, Josh. I'm so glad that you're having this. I'd left a message for you before. Uh, my undergraduate degree is in. I have a Bachelor of Science in Marketing from the University of Wyoming. Go Pokes! Uh, and I think that the real challenge that the Wyoming Business Council has is not an operational or a business or even a financial. I think that there's a marketing problem. Y'all have been putting your heads down and getting the work done and making a difference. And those people who have felt it really know about it. The problem is that that there's a lot of people who have benefited who have no idea that they've benefited. And so there are these like short phrases that land really well, and there's no corresponding challenge to that. So when people say winners and losers, that's a really easy thing to say. And what engenders in people's minds is that you guys are looking out at this competitive landscape and you're saying, I see three people here doing the same thing. And you, I don't care about you, I'm going to help. When we all, anybody with two brain cells to rub together know that that's not what happening is happening. At the very least, it's there's nobody out there somebody's willing to come in, but they need some help. And maybe when they get going, others will come in and provide that competition. And so that's a marketing issue. So on the winners and losers, so that's one that they do. And then there is this idea that somehow or other you're just opening the vaults and you're throwing money out to individual businesses and individuals. And I know that that's not true as well, but nothing has come out to counter that. So how the money actually gets, how the funds are made available is another area that needs to be addressed, and not in a kind of wonky business like academic way, but hey, this is how it gets there.
Yeah.
And maybe people who have benefited from that can talk about that. And then the next thing is that the statement is, well, they're using our tax funds. Well, as a regular citizen, I know that the amount that I and the other individuals are putting into the state coffers is like less than 30%. So that's BS, and that needs to be countered. But the second thing is that I'm pretty sure, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that the funding that is channeled through the Wyoming Business Council comes from at least three sources: state funds, federal funds, and private, like venture capital funds. And so that's another area that people are not understanding because it's not made clear to that, which comes to another area, which is this idea of helping with public-private partnerships. And then one last thing, and all of this is areas that I would really like to see your marketing folks go, we're going to take and run with this and get people to go, is I watched a Facebook Live where Speaker of the House Chip Nyman has this great idea. Instead of giving money to the Wyoming Business Council, we should just get rid of them, and we should make infrastructure money, the boring stuff that goes in the ground, I think is what he said, available to the communities. And I'm like, is somebody going to tell him? Like, who's going to tell him? Like, he's the Speaker of the House and he doesn't know. So again, there's a level of misunderstanding and ignorance, not like stupid, but ignorance. And so how that money comes is another area that needs to be made available in a way that people who are busy with other things can have it be kind of catchy, like winners and losers, and have it stick in their mind and go, oh, well, winners and losers, that's not happening. That's bullshit. So I threw a lot out there, but where the money's coming from, where the money's going to, and one last thing, how success is measured, because it's not just in jobs. So when Nyman said, oh, this many tens of millions of dollars and only, a handful of jobs, it's like, okay, so that's not true either. You had that many jobs just in Weston County over the last 10 years. So come on. So I think those three things, like how do we measure success? What's the success versus failures ratio? And by the way, you might also remember, people who like baseball, that a hitter who bats 300 is a damn fine baseball player. Nobody bats 1,000. So that's my thing.
Well, thanks, Gail. I think the gist though is that you're right in that we do have a marketing problem. Absolutely. What we have right now though that's beautiful is that we have a lot of people paying attention. And this is probably the first time that we've had this many folks who are paying attention to what's going on in the state and looking at our economy so critically. I know that people are probably going to think this statement is weird, but this time that we're experiencing right now as an agency, it kind of warms my heart. And I know that sounds really weird because we got zeroed out of the budget and there's legislation to get rid of us completely. But what it is telling me is that there are people who are paying attention to our economy. And it also is giving us an opportunity to provide that inflection point and do better with marketing. You're right. We tend to do our work and move on to the next thing. I think that actually in Chris's comments, it's the same kind of thing. We don't celebrate our wins and continue to provide that. We need to do a better job of that. And it's not to beat our chest and promote who we are and try to save our budget. It's to make sure that other people in the state can be aware of what's happening and utilize the programs. As you mentioned, we might have programs that would work for somebody, but if they don't know about it and they don't understand the success that they could have, why would they take advantage of it? There is a short explainer video, you don't have to go to it now, that shows how the money flows in the Business Ready Communities program. It's a little bit old, but the bottom line is that you're right. It's not a simple path. I wish I'm not going to I want to make sure that their context is taken correctly here because there's a lot of things that have been taken out of context lately. So what I'm about to say right now is 100% sarcasm. And so please don't think that this is real. But when we drive around the state with our giant duffel bag of cash, just throwing it out of the trunk, uh, well, that doesn't happen. Okay, we don't have that, and so it's just not the way it works. The money flows. It's very well. It's a well-oiled machine. We know where it's going. We can keep absolute accounting of it, and we'll do a better job of marketing it. In addition to the successes and failures. Now, you did mention failures, and I want to cover that for a second. We don't intend to fail, but we definitely change our approach when we fail so that we don't fail again. Just a few years ago, we had a particular project that didn't work out very well. And we said, okay, well, how can we change our rules to better protect the state when this happens again? Because we are going to be in situations where it happens again. We will not bat 1,000. I'm shooting for more Ted Williams numbers. Actually, I would like to be double Ted Williams numbers, which is around 800. I think that that's where we ought to be. We'll be in the Hall of Fame for sure. But we change our process each time we can so that we make sure that we're doing better each time. And so failures happen, but you don't have to make them twice. So thank you, Gail, for all of that. We're going to jump to J.R. Riggins. J.R., how are you doing? You might still be muted, sir.
There we go.
There we go.
Thank you, Josh.
Yeah, thanks, Representative.
A couple of questions here. So I've been talking here, just the local community, Casper, Mills. So what is the status of the projects? If I'm sure you're familiar with them, like Austin, and then there's that loop project up above by the event center. So all those have been, I guess, budgeted for. So so what will be the status going forward, regardless of what happens? Are those funded? I know the Austin one's a little more complicated.
Yeah.
And it might be too complicated to discuss here, but generally speaking, you have projects that have already been approved and on and on. So so where are those going?
So I'm gonna parse apart your question into a few different answers. So first off, even projects that have been approved, we don't start expending funds until those projects start and we receive invoices from the community that work has been done. Okay, so a project could sit, we could approve it. Let's say we approve it in 2023. It may not even start until 2025, and it may not have started yet. In one of the cases that you mentioned, it has not started yet. So all of that money is still in the BRC funds, but it's what's called encumbered for that project so that we can't utilize it on any other project. Now, if that project does not happen, those monies stay in the Business Ready Communities fund. They are not expended. They're not used. They then become available for other projects that occur. That project we have not received any invoices to pay out on that project. It has not commenced. The other projects that are, I think, if you think about Casper, and I'm going to include Evansville to sort of the whole Casper area, the other two projects that are going on right now are infrastructure projects that unlock either an area for growth, for example, up by the Casper, the Ford Event Center, I believe it's called now, and the sports ranch. We ran a water line and helped open up some area for development. We just did the water line portion of that. That is either underway or it's nearing completion. In Evansville, Mesa Solutions came to Evansville and said, "Hey, we want to build a new building here on their dime." I think that they're putting forth maybe $100 million building, and it's a beautiful thing. You could see it from I-25. And we put in the water line that unlocked that, the water line and the road infrastructure to do that because Evansville did not have the funds to make that happen. And so we were able to unlock that growth. Those are the types of projects that are occurring in the Casper area right now. To answer the second part of your question, which is sort of like what happens if the nuclear option that has been proposed by the Joint Appropriations Committee stands? And what happens to those projects if the Business Council is not there to administer them? Well, that's a good question. I think that's likely been contemplated, and I think maybe in the legislation that was proposed that those particular management functions get moved over to other entities within the state so that they can continue. I think it's important to remember though, on all of these projects, the loans that we do, that gets paid back into the Business Ready Communities fund. So we can use that again and again. If we don't exist, that will come back to the state and someone will have to administer that. It's also important to note that process, and I think if we were to ask Chris, the economic impact of those projects would likely not be realized or recognized or promoted because you're basically going to put that into an accounting function within the state and not people who are thinking about economic development. You're thinking about people who are just making sure that the money goes in and out. Nothing wrong with that, but it's just an area that we're asking somebody to do something that they're not normally doing. So I think those projects would be handled by the state. Another agency would have to take those on, and they would at least be able to be functional. Now, any new projects are obviously not going to happen. So let's say that another area around your territory says, "Hey, we want to be able to do this, but we're short." Well, I don't know how that's going to work. They're going to have to try to find that. But frankly, when it comes to growth and infrastructure for growth, we are the only agency in the state that does that. So that would have to be contemplated separately, or you could keep the Business Council around. Those are the options. JR, did that answer your question?
Yeah, that did me well enough. It was that's complicated on a couple of other ones. I knew the one hadn't. There's some other international issues dealing with the one. So
that is correct. Tariffs point both ways, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
So I'll let you go. I will tell you, I did visit with Drew Dietrich here a week or so ago, and it was a very good conversation and a very talented and knowledgeable man.
I couldn't agree more. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. All right, we're gonna jump to Joe Heward. Not shockingly, Joe's icon is a Rams icon. Joe, how you doing?
Good. Can you hear me?
Yep, sound great.
Okay. Hey, my answer, reason I raised my hand was a little slow is I kind of wanted to respond to Chris. I'm a town councilman in Thane, have been for about 15 years, and we've used it twice that I'm aware of. We had a big building, commercial building next to us, and we were able to buy that and then lease it to the hospital. And so the hospital paid us payments on that. We just received a while ago the last $290,000. And we're putting that to different things. We've been able to put that money towards roads, infrastructure, a community center, things like that. And we also had the second one where the cheese factory was, and it went away. We've sold lots on it. Finally, now all the lots are sold. It took about 5 or 6 years. But now we have a Napa Auto Parts and a dentist office. The other two are going to be built on eventually. Yep. So for a town of 350, but I also, I can't remember the lady's name, when she talked about marketing, I would almost put my idea where the money came from or what we've done or how we got that money to do a new roof on the community center, or that all that took place from the Business Ready and stuff.
Yep.
So we're not doing a
Yep.
good job as a town marketing where the money came from.
Well,
But huge
thanks, Joe.
influence to have a clinic and stuff in the town, small town.
Yeah, you bet. You bet. Well, thanks, Joe. And here's another thing to remember. And this is again not the easiest program to remember. The legislation for that is a little bit complicated, but it has to be for a lot of reasons. But the money that we utilize in these business ready communities projects, it goes to build assets in the community that are community owned. So as Joe mentioned, they might have a building that was built with Wyoming Business Council funds. It is owned by the community, and the community actually gets paid a lease for companies that use it. And those lease monies are then used for economic development in their communities. So the beautiful thing is the money gets to stay in the family, so to speak, when you think about the state, the city, and the counties. And as he mentioned, you have opportunities for new businesses to come in and be able to utilize those. So thanks, Joe, for that. And now we'll move on to Nick.
Hey there, Josh. Can you hear me okay?
I can. Thank you.
Hey, so there's been a lot of critique lobbed at the Business Council, some fair, some unfair. Of the fair critiques, what are they, and what are your plans to address those critiques, or what changes will you guys implement to address those? Thank you.
Before I answer what I think are fair critiques, do you have any in particular that you wanted me to address?
Oh, no, because the Facebook comments are awful. I don't want to repeat those. I'm just kidding.
Uh, well, so I think the most fair critique, and I think this is accurate, is that this is a good time for the Business Council to really look at how should we change in order to address the need and the wants of Wyoming. And the funny thing is that we've actually been saying that internally for a long time because we have a 94-page statute, and a lot of that stuff is probably not really all that helpful. And so, more than anything, when it comes to fair critiques, I am probably the biggest critic of the Business Council, and we are looking at how do we change it and use this opportunity to change it. I think that the thing that needs to happen is that we actually do need to go in and we need to restructure our statute. We need to restructure some of our programs, and that's going to require statutory changes. And the legislature is the place where statutory changes occur. So rather than defunding the entire agency and getting rid of us, how about instead we work together, take the knowledge and information that we've gained over the last, well, really 26 years, but for sure in the last 6 years, we have a lot of knowledge that we know will help us get to where we want to be. We need a good nexus with the legislature. So when it comes to critique, I think we definitely need to change our statutes, and we need to really be more focused on what's going to move the needle in Wyoming. And that is regulatory reduction, that is infrastructure that our communities need, and it's the right infrastructure. It's not just anything anywhere. It's economic rigor on that. And then I also think that it's really important. It's really important for us to think about a system where the communities have self-reliance and they're strong partners. If we were to be able to do that with the legislature in some way, maybe it's a task force moving into this session. Maybe it is my dream. Okay, you guys ready for my dream? My dream with the legislature is to have my own standing committee, just sort of like Joint Minerals is. I would like to have one that's only the economy. So that's my dream, is to have my own legislative committee where there are senators and representatives who are locked into the economy and work with us on policy changes. I would love that. That would be my dream. So if anybody's out there that's granting wishes today, I will use all three of my wishes on that. Okay, those are the things that I think would be fair critiques, and definitely the plan to do that would be moving forward with big time changes to the statute and a better nexus with the legislature.
Can I ask a really quick follow-up?
Sure.
What about changes to address Chris R's concern about transparency?
Mhm. I think that I'm open to it. We're going to provide that, and when we talk about marketing, if you think about what Chris is asking about and what Gail is asking about, those are two very similar things. And it is how do we promote and provide the information that is useful in helping people make decisions and understand our programs. And so I'm all for it. I'm kind of envisioning almost like a dashboard of information that people can look at and dig down into those projects. I have a few people on my team that are so darn sharp that maybe by the end of our second open mic, I won't say this first one, they could probably even have that done. I don't want to put any pressure on them. Um, but I really do think that those concerns are ways that we can show how much we make an impact in the state and actually provide that transparency that I think is important. So I'm excited about those ideas. Thank you. Looks like Nick, unless you have any follow-ups, thanks for bringing folks into the room there. We'll move on to Leanne.
Can you hear me okay?
I can.
All right. Leanne Ryder, Cody, Wyoming. It kind of goes along some of the questions that you've already been receiving, just to pass on to you comments that I hear, and I'd like some clarification on. First of all, kudos to all these smaller communities around the state of Wyoming that are trying to make stuff happen, especially with some of the uncertainty coming at us. I am 100% in your corner. I will also though like to pass on things that I hear here in up in our little corner. To set the stage, we are the second highest contributor to Wyoming state tourism dollars at the state level. We play a big role in the state's economy. Our constituents here in Park County, we still sit at 4 cents on a dollar sales tax, so we do keep a lid on things. We do not waste money. My understanding, what I am hearing, and one more point I'd like to make there on behalf of the state, not just local, but on behalf of the state. The municipality of Cody, for example, has 10,000 population. We host at least 50,000 through the summer, and probably much higher than that. Our infrastructure takes a huge hit. It's not just here local, but it's also on behalf of the state. We take that hit and we take it proudly. That's our role. I have heard from multiple avenues that Park County doesn't even bother applying to Wyoming Business Council because you personally have said, I will not give any money to Park County, even though it's a loan, would pay it back. You're not going to give any money to Park County because we're at 4 cents on a dollar. Help me with that rumor?
Well, that's not true. And it turns out I have very little power in that situation. What I will tell you is that in my conversations with folks in Park County, I have said, and we have changed our application process to include the revenue component that communities can gather from not just their own citizens, but also from tourists, like you mentioned. And also to remind everybody that you have those tax tools, those revenue tools at your disposal, and the legislature has granted them. And so the way my stance is and the way our board stance is that we want people to know that they have tools to pay for things on their own that they may choose to not use. It's really more about illuminating that fact than making it impossible to get. I will say, though, if I had two applications and I had to decide between them, and I've got a community that says, hey, we want to do a loan, and here's our tax situation, here's what we're bringing to the table, and theirs is better than yours. If I have limited resources, I'm going to pick the best partner. And I don't mean to be like, I use that as an extreme example because chances are pretty good, especially with the funds we have today, we could likely fund both projects. But I think we all have to take a look at what we bring to the table and how we can improve our local self-reliance. So
correct, but all things being equal, just real quick,
yeah.
Follow-up question. So let's say you have two projects, 5 million each. Both communities bring you $5 million. You would still consider Park County a lesser contender.
We would
even if we bring the same amount of match funds to the table.
If we had limited funds, or we had enough to spend to put into both.
Okay.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, our board will take all of those factors into account. There are more factors than just your local taxes. we actually take a look at not just your local taxes, but the opportunity that you are creating, the growth that you could unlock, and the economic impact of that may outweigh the fact that you have very low taxes.
Okay, there you go. That was kind of my point. If you have a
Yeah.
project that is bringing more money into the state or preserving what we're already bringing.
That's right.
So that actually goes back to some of the earlier conversation about statutes. Is that discriminatory, those actions? Some of that kind of stuff. But yes, so believe me, we're here for the state, and we will continue to do what we can. But that's to me, if it's a like for like project or one's bringing returns or either communities bringing matching funds, regardless of where they're coming from. We might have private donors, whatever. Hopefully we can have a level playing field in which to compete.
Absolutely. Well, I think that we look at all of those factors, and our focus on revenue tools is to really help unlock those in communities where they may not have enough. And that's the intent of that, is to make sure that people know the tools that they have and know what they might be leaving on the table. And more than anything, I would love it if you were able to do more projects and we were able to help out. And I think sometimes those revenue tools can allow that. So
just to be
Leanne,
clear with all the folks listening in, I fully support the smaller communities. I do sit in on some of these WAM meetings, and I do understand that comes first. I got that. So thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks, Leanne. Great question. All right. Lucas.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
I can. Yeah, thanks.
Well, thank you for hosting this. First off, I'm a recent graduate from the University of Wyoming, and so we spun off a company. We're here at the Wyoming Technology Business Center. And so I was just going back to the point on marketing and kind of advocating what you guys are actually doing. We've been a benefactor of some of the grants that really helped us kind of start up and get off the ground. And so one kind of potential thought I wanted to put out is the idea of being able to kind of have more testimonials from those that have actually used the resources and what they're doing with the resources. And some of the companies, talking with legislators on, how they benefited, the activities that they've been able to do to grow their business as a result of it, because we definitely have and have benefited from the resources. So just a thought of maybe reaching out to those companies and seeing if we can actually have an opportunity to share our experiences and how we've used the funds.
You bet. Yeah, we would be happy to. I'm guessing you will have somebody from our team reaching out to you ASAP. So thanks, Lucas.
Yep,
Glad it's working out. Thank you. All right. Looks like Zach.
Hey, Josh and team. I'm Zach Silber. I run a media publication that covers economic development. So I've been following this as it relates to Wyoming's economic competitiveness. I was very interested in just, getting your views on the current competitive environment in Wyoming, the type of states you compete with for projects and investments, and the types of investments that might be in your pipeline that would potentially be in jeopardy of losing out on if the Business Council were to go away. So really just a broad question to kind of get your state of play on Wyoming's current competition for projects and investment.
Well, I think it's, first of all, great question. And I think I've seen you email me this type of a question before to be, either in the publication or to provide commentary on this. And so I apologize. I've been a tad bit preoccupied with it's just an existential crisis. It's not a big deal.
It's okay.
We actually see the competitive landscape, and it's real. One of the things that is pretty interesting about Wyoming is that in Wyoming, we have for a long, long time not had to compete as much with outside forces or outside states for business, because much of our economy is based on natural resources, whether that's the beautiful things that Leanne was mentioning with the tourists that come and look at the beautiful things in our state. Those are natural resources, or the things that are underground. And they have to be here to be part of the economy. So other states can't really compete with us for Wyoming coal or for the Tetons, right? Like those are here. And so we're moving into an area of our history where now we're competing with companies that are mobile. You can move a manufacturing plant. You can move a services or a technology company. You can move those things more easily, and we're catching up to the competitiveness of that. I think you saw in maybe a few months ago, a company called Radiant Engineering was looking at Wyoming as the place to call it home and to employ a number of people in manufacturing micro nuclear reactors. And we lost that to Tennessee. And so I look at competitiveness in terms of policy. That one was a policy decision that we didn't have the right policy to make it possible for them to do business in Wyoming, which makes us not as business friendly as we'd like to be, and investments. And again, when you are looking at your state entity and saying, hey, we may not exist, well, who's going to look after the policy to make sure that policy is friendly to business and make sure that businesses have the policy tools they need to succeed? And then you also have to look at the investments. Can those investments or should those investments just be made by the legislature every couple of years? Because guess what? In other states, they have deal closing funds. They have funds. Their constitution allows them to pay directly. Wyoming has so many exciting parts to being here for companies. We do have low taxes, but that's not everybody's favorite thing. Not everybody needs that. We have a great lifestyle. We have safe communities. We have a great education system. We have a lot of the components that businesses who are looking to move around want. But we also have to be honest about the things that we don't have. And we need to be able to make investments into communities for that business landscape. We need to make sure that we're addressing regulatory barriers so that workforce has housing here and we can have more people in our state. Now, the good news is also about Wyoming is that we have a populace who actually wants growth. So we did some research, Zach, and I'd be happy to share the information about our polling that we did back at the end of September. And it says that Wyoming wants growth. Wyoming wants to make sure that we put policies in place that help our kids stay here. And they would have that population and business growth, even though there are bad things that come with it, like a little bit more traffic or more houses or higher density. All of those things, while they may not be great, Wyomingites want because we want that economic growth. And so I think there's a good balance here. You know, we've got some things we've got to fix that other states do pretty well, and we've got some things that we have that other states will never have. And so I kind of look at it as how do we make sure that we're not just saying doubling down on all the things that we already have and ignoring those other competitive forces? But again, we're in a transition where we didn't have to compete like that. And so we're kind of new to the game, and I just don't want us to be out of the game before we play.
That's terrific. Yeah, and I'm happy you explained it because I think, just listening to the call, you guys do a lot for the state that people, I think, touch more so every day. But this world of economic development competition is fierce, and really appreciate your comments to kind of educate the group on.
Yeah. One other thing I'll mention is I think it was last week I was at the SHOT Show, which is a shooting, hunting, and outdoor show in Las Vegas. And obviously a lot of the companies that we are working with and that are excited about Wyoming in the gun industry were there, and then they were bummed out that the Joint Appropriations Committee was thinking about getting rid of us. They said, "Well, what is happening? Why would you do that?" They were all upset, and they thought this is not a good thing for our industry. And then we ran into folks at Idaho, and we ran into folks in Nebraska, we ran into folks in Indiana. They were pretty darn happy that the Joint Appropriations Committee was thinking about getting rid of our sales arm because they were seeing it as an opportunity for them. So I think it is fierce competition out there. We've got to recognize that, and we got to play the game. So yeah, thanks for your question. I'm gonna jump now to Marco.
Hey Josh, Marco Rubel here, up in Cody. Howdy. Just it's kind of a piggyback off of Lucas, but just wondering if you might share a few thoughts on the WYVC, the YVC fund that you guys have, and some of the efforts that you're doing to help build a vibrant startup ecosystem.
Yeah, YVC. What we have about 4 minutes left, and I'm going to probably take 14 of those minutes. So let me go. No, YVC is a really cool program. It's utilizing money from the federal government that allows us to take investments or make investments into companies and take equity. So normally our Constitution would not allow us to do that, but because these are federal funds, we're able to. And the reason we're doing that is not just, oh, here's a federal program, let's do it. We recognize that venture capital was a challenge for Wyoming because of its low population and lack of capital and lack of deal flow. And so we see this as a chicken and egg problem. So people would say, well, there's not enough deal flow to bring in the capital. And somebody would say, well, there's not enough capital to make the deal flow happen. And that is a chicken and egg problem. And it's a perfect opportunity for a government entity to go in there and break that up. And so we said, well, let's push on one side of that. If there's not enough capital, let's see if we can push on capital and add capital to the system and increase the deal flow. Well, you know what happened? We put in capital into the system and the deal flow has gone up. And the amazing thing is that the companies in Wyoming, once we broke down that barrier, they are seeing new rounds of investment that now we cannot even play in. So the amount of potential wealth and the jobs that are created and the amount of economic impact that's happening because of YVC, it's incredible. And we're super excited about it. And we have we have the data on those, and we'd be happy to share as much as we can. But again, a dollar in BRC and YVC turns into $20 of economic impact and 50 cents back to the state in revenue directly. So you're talking about some really, really good things that are coming out of YVC. But again, I'm gonna say this, and I want everybody to pay attention closely. I don't actually want the state to be in venture capital forever. I want to prove that there's a challenge and I want to fix that challenge. And then I'd like it to be out. I'd like to be out so that the private market can take care of that. If in its best form, government programs should go address the problem, fix it in such a way that it doesn't exist anymore. And I think we're in an opportunity to do that with YVC.
Great. Thank you, Josh.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, it looks like we're coming up on the hour. Thank you all for joining. This was not just a lot of fun, but I hope it was educational. It was educational for me to hear your thoughts, to hear your ideas, and folks like Chris and Gail and JR, Nick, Leanne, Lucas, Zach, and Marco. Thanks for asking. Oh wait, there was somebody else earlier on who asked a really good question too. A couple other ones. Thanks for asking questions. They're going to help make us better. And what I will tell you is that we will jump on these things that we committed to. We will also be having another one of these next week. So please tune into that. Stay tuned for more info on that, and keep going out there. Keep asking hard questions. Keep looking to make us more transparent and to make our programs better. Because ultimately, we're in a cycle of continuous improvement, and this helps us do that. So thank you all for your time today, and look forward to seeing you next week. All right. Bye-bye.